5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the regular board meeting of the Tahoe Truckee Unified School District. Today's date is August 4th, 2021. I noted earlier that's less than 30 days till school starts. Yay. The board did meet in closed session and took no reportable action in closed session. If you would all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Superintendent Geisels, any changes to this evening's agenda?
No, President Zirk, no changes. But I would like to note that we are following a gradual release to responsibility as far as our safety mitigation measures. So we have made an announcement in here in our district office that if personnel is vaccinated, they don't have to wear a mask. They can. But if you aren't vaccinated, we ask that you do. And if a student walks in the door, K-12, we mask up. So right now we're going to be without mask, and it's a nice thing today because it's kind of warm. So, and then also we've included more seating still at a safe distance, so we don't need to use the gym.
That's wonderful. Eking toward normality, especially as more folks get vaccinated. Public comment. This is the opportunity for anyone from the public to make comment on anything that is not on this evening's agenda. Lupita, public comment?
There is no public comment.
Thank you. I did see we got a letter to the board, but that wasn't part of public comment, so thank you very much.
Kim, I'm going to interrupt and I'm going to approve the agenda as presented.
Oh, did I skip that?
Yep. I was waiting for my call.
Darn. I'm so sorry. You made the move. Who would like to second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Thanks for keeping me in line, you guys. Next, we have our Superintendent Chief Learning Officer's report.
Thank you, President Zurich. So today we're really excited because we sent out our TTUSD back to school fact sheets to our staff and to our parents. A few things I'd like to highlight is President Zurich said we start school August 31st. We're very excited about that. And our goal is to provide the most engaging, normal as possible school experience for our students. We're still going to have to navigate COVID, but we are happy to be able to be a little bit better off than we were last year. We do have masking requirements, and it has been mandated by CDPH, California Department of Public Health. We will follow this so we can fully open in person. That's the key word. The California Department of Public Health mandates face masks that are required for all individuals indoors K-12 facilities when students are present, regardless of vaccination status. So for outdoors, masks are optional and not required even on our campuses when students are present. We will be welcoming back visitors and volunteers to our school, and provided that they wear a mask regardless of vaccination status. Our school bell schedules are pre-COVID March 2020 schedules. I was told I needed to say that to make it clear to parents. They're posted on our websites with the master list on the district websites, and our school websites, I'm sorry. And then our homeschool transportation. I know this has been very difficult, and we thank our parents for their patience and their flexibility. We are only able to provide homeschool transportation to our highest need neighborhood students, which includes special education. Here we go, guys. Special education, foster youth, low income, and those students who have previously or approve of children of essential workers. We know our resources are limited, and we're really trying very hard to meet the one resource that's limited. We have a severe driver shortage. Right now we have 6 driver vacancies. We have a job fair tomorrow from 4 to 7. Please come if you want to drive a bus. We'll even train you to drive a bus. We have some amazing bus drivers. So we would love for you to join our family. And lastly, we are going to eliminate the minimal physical distancing requirement between our students. We will have barriers at the request of parents and to be put up, but we are taking them down. This is part of another layered effective mitigation strategy where we feel that the masking requirements will be sufficient per CDPH guidelines. Our school meals will continue to be provided free to all students during 2021, and we will have extracurricular activities, band, athletics, field trips, volunteers, and visitors. We are very excited to try to get back to normal as much as possible, so we're excited about the 2021 school year.
Thank you. That is great progress. So we are honored tonight to recognize a very special contribution to our educational community, Superintendent Geisels.
Yes, it is my honor and privilege to recognize one of our own employees, and I know he doesn't like this, but if I could get Mr. Derek Brosserman to stand up here at the podium with me.
I know, I'm sorry, I have to take it down a notch.
My question is, do you have a room yet of all your awards?
So a really short story for me is I was coming back, I had just landed from Hawaii in San Francisco, and I was driving back from my vacation on Monday, July 26th. I believe that was the date. When I got a text message, and then I picked up a phone call from Miss Nanette Rondow here, telling me about the tragic plane crash. And I know our hearts all go out to the family members of those lost in that plane crash. But I also saw a video that was posted that I'm sure all of you have seen. And it just gives me goosebumps to think of what could have been much worse wasn't. And I wanted to acknowledge the quick thinking, the bravery, which comes from the heart from this young man. And he is a hero who protects our students, their well-being, and their safety. And we just wanted to let you know how amazing you are, inside and out. And I know Nanette probably would not be happy if I didn't let her speak, but I just needed you to know how proud we are. And I just told your mother, you're an amazing kid.
Thank you, Superintendent Geisels. I would just like to say, on behalf of the Transportation Department, all of your coworkers, all of the outreach that we've seen from our parents, the community, that we are so thankful and so grateful to you, Derek. And especially for me, you know, I don't like to brag about this, but Derek, I was a bus driver that drove Derek when he was in middle school and high school. And so now that he's part of our team, I am so extremely proud to see the work that he does with our students, his coworkers. And this is just a prime example of the way that he responds. A lot of it as a result of the training, but he really does care about his kids. He loves his job, and it really shows. Thank you so much, Derek. We're so proud of you. And this is for you.
You want to read it out?
Recognition.
Do I want to read it out loud? You can read it.
So we have one person that's in the room that I'm going to ask to read this out loud, and he's going to tell his story. Make sure you introduce yourself so everyone knows who you are. Come on up.
Very embarrassing.
He and his mom have matching hair. I love it.
Thanks. My name is Klein McCormick, and I was on the bus he was driving, and I'm very thankful that he was driving, and he saved all of us, and it's very nice.
Thank you.
You want to help me read this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Derek is a hero who protects the safety and well-being of our TTUSD students. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys. And I do want to say that I really couldn't have done it without these guys. I mean, the kids on my bus that day held together so well and just listened to everything we had to say and were so cooperative and so good-spirited for what was going on. They really helped me get through it as calmly and as well as we did. So I want to thank you guys for just being amazing also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Klein, thank you for talking, honey. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Klein.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for coming. And Mom and Klein. Okay. I've got goosebumps right now.
I know, it was hard for me to get through that.
So next we move on to that. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, guys. To some resolutions related, the first of which relates to the quitclaim deed with core construction for the Truckee High School Modernization Increment 2 project.
Mr. Rivera, if you would talk about this one.
Thank you. And we've brought some kind of closeout items regarding the Truckee High School reconstruction project with regards to Core Construction, who was our leaseback contractor. So this is really the final piece of that. It's to formalize essentially that the project is complete and that now we could release their final payment, which if you recall at I think the last board meeting or maybe the one prior to that, there was a lease component to the leaseback agreement, and essentially this basically ends the project and terminates that lease agreement between us and the contractors and allows us to release the final lease payment, which was part of the guaranteed maximum price of the project.
Questions from the board? Galen, you're all good with this? Your extra credit work is coming to its end, isn't it? Being part of that committee, okay.
The only comment I'd make is that it's always great when we do that closing out, so congrats, I'm psyched. And as Galen, I'm sorry that you're retiring from that extra, but it's again, I just think that it's important that everyone knows that we've been working so hard to get it done, and there's still like lots of loose parts, but when we check off, I just love those lists, so check them off. Awesome. But also too, Core was awesome. Like we definitely made a really good move on that. And I do think that as much as I don't like to say goodbye to them, but that they did a really, really, really good job.
Yeah, thank you. They did. They were a very reliable contractor and a very good team partner with the district, and we hope that we can work with them again in the future.
Again, we had some issues that weren't, and I think that's something that's really, really important, that in your relationships, that whatever you guys did, and Galen, it might have still been part of your conversation in those meetings, but it's not even on recording. But anyway, they were really, really good for us, and it was a great thing, so hats off to all you guys, whatever you did.
Yeah, ditto. Core was great. I so appreciate them. Any other questions or comments on this? Any public comment?
There are no public comments.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 1, 2122 with Core.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. So just to note, to make the meeting run more quickly, there is no public in the room. And unless Lupita, who is monitoring outside other public comment, lets me know, I'm not going to continue to ask for that, so that we can just move efficiently through the meeting. If public shows up, then that changes. Next, we'll have resolution number 2, 2122, to establish August as Immunization Awareness Month.
Yes, National Immunization Awareness Month was established to encourage people of all ages to make sure they're up to date on their vaccines recommended for them. And to talk further about this, I have Mr. Jeff Santos.
Yes, thank you. So this resolution, again, is an example of ways that we're trying to keep our students and staff healthy and safe. This is a National Awareness Month, especially because we're all coming back to school. So this is recognizing our nurses on the ground, trying to support families on getting their vaccines, immunizations, I should say. And if you are listening, parents, if you have an incoming 7th grader or kinder and have not had the vaccines taken care of, please do so. But I do need to recognize our own TTUSD nurses for their efforts with this as well.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Santos.
Absolutely. And even older kids, you have to have all the vaccination records when you send them to college, too. Don't forget. So don't lose those little yellow cards.
No, don't.
Like some people. Questions? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2, Immunization Awareness Month.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Next, we have a grant from the Nevada County Quality Counts for our STEP program.
Oh, okay. Yes, so STEP program, as a reminder, is the infant and toddler program. Again, I've said it before, our littlest scholars, and this grant award definitely goes to supporting that program as far as supplies within that environment. Cindy Maciel and the staff out there run a great program, so this will help continue to keep that going.
Board questions? Would someone like to make a motion?
As with all our grants, I would love to say thank you for getting that, and I love the fact that we get grants on a regular basis. And I will make a motion to approve grant from the Nevada County, Nevada County Quality Counts.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Next, we have our consent agenda. Did staff wish to pull any items from the consent agenda?
No, President Zurich, we do not.
I know we had some board homework on the consent agenda. Does any board member wish to pull an item on the consent agenda? Okay. Would someone like to move approval?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. And then we have association reports, but we don't have any association reps, so we will move on from that. And then our next is personnel. We have approving a proposed revision to the classified management salary schedule.
Ms. Zapatini is going to give you some specific information regarding the salary schedule.
So this request is specific to position of a project manager. It was initiated by a project manager we only have one project manager, requesting that their number of workdays be reduced and working collaboratively with Todd Rivera and looking at the district needs at this time because we're going down on projects, meaning a lot of projects are being completed. We agreed that this would be appropriate. So we have reduced the number of contract days from 227 to 206. The person will still be earning their same per diem. It's just a reduction of the number of days that they're actually working for their work year.
Thank you. Any further questions on this? Would someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the classified management salary schedule revisions.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. And next, we have a job description for a wellness center specialist.
So just to frame it, we've had wellness center open for the high schools for the last, I think, 8, 9 years. It's 10 years. It's been quite a while. When we first we hired them in a community liaison position. Of course, things have changed so much in the last several years, especially, and I'm going to ask Jeff Santos to give you really a full run of where we were, how we are now, and why this job description better supports the work that we're actually doing.
Yes, so the wellness centers that we do currently have at North Tahoe High School and Truckee High School over time have morphed into more intense work with mental health needs of our youth to the point where they're taking on additional leadership roles, especially with a big social emotional learning push that we've seen over the last 2 years coming out of COVID. Looking at and comparing other districts to a similar like position, looking at their requirements in terms of educational levels and whatnot. We felt that this was something that in order to recruit and attract candidates, now that we're looking at expanding to our middle schools, that we felt this was a comparable compensation compared to, in alignment with other districts in our area. So that's essentially why we're requesting an additional sort of job description change as well as a salary increase for these individuals. And part of that is now, like I said, a higher educational level as well as experience. I'll answer any questions if you might have some.
And I know there was questions in the homework. Are there additional questions?
I apologize for not asking the homework. But the other, maybe it's a clarification. If we have those people that are in those positions are going to stay, or are we having to get new people for these positions?
Yeah, my understanding is that because it's a new change to a position, their old position would collapse. They would have to apply for this position. That's correct, to level the playing field. But my understanding is the individuals who are in the positions at the moment at the two high schools are interested in continuing in the work.
Perfect.
And in addition, they both qualify based on the requirements of the job description.
Awesome, thank you for that.
I don't have a question, just a comment that I'm so glad that we're opening those doors to middle schoolers too. I mean, before they get to high school and it's a higher crisis situation, right? That's been building. So I love that about our district. Thank you guys for that.
I also just definitely wanted to commend the sort of spearheading of the thinking in earlier intervention. Obviously pays off better over time and is more sustainable. So thank you so much for doing that, and I'm sure that's going to make a huge difference for the AP and the principal on both of those middle school sites. So thank you so much. Couldn't be prouder. Big changes, but definitely in a positive direction.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve this?
I will thank you, Jeff, for getting on that, as well as your COVID activities, and I'll approve the proposed new job description, Wellness Center Specialist.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, next we have 4 business services items. The first is with a contract with Sierra Nevada Construction for asphalt maintenance.
Mr. Rivera will talk in detail about the Sierra Nevada construction contract.
And then, do you want to do both Truckee L and Glenshire?
I can do that.
Okay.
So both 16.1 and 16.2 are both related to asphalt repairs. At Truckee Elementary, there's a small section of parking lot on the eastern side of the campus, which frequently is used by our staff for parking purposes. That was not included in the reconstruction project for Truckee Elementary, so we're addressing that now, and essentially we're doing a 2-inch overlay and repairs to that existing parking lot. In addition, we are doing some improvements and repairs to Glenshire. It's long overdue. It's the playground area, the blacktop area on that campus, as well as the asphalt area in between the portables, and it's the same thing, some repairs, striping, and then also a 2-inch overlay of asphalt, of new asphalt.
Questions on either of those projects?
Todd, will those projects then, because it was just better not to put it into the bond, but now is this money that we're spending this, and this is out of general fund that we had anticipated?
Yeah, this is actually coming out of our maintenance funds. So
we'd anticipated it.
we assess our asphalt areas every year, and we do sealing on select campuses, but this is something that's been a long-term maintenance need, but it was not included in the original bond projects, probably for cost-saving purposes. So this will be funded out of our deferred maintenance funding.
Which is what we already have that. Like, the
Yes.
reason I'm asking these now is that I like them in public so that they understand that we have already anticipated this and that we know it's happening, and this is just part of our maintenance. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve, unless there's more, I'll make a motion to approve both. Can I do that?
I think we have to do them one at a time, right?
Okay.
Don't we have to do them both? So, 16.1,
I'll make a motion to approve 16.1.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 I'll make a motion to approve 16.2.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you. And then we have a contract for mechanical system at North Tahoe School and High School.
Thank you. And our facilities and maintenance department is constantly evaluating just the operations of our heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems at all of our school sites. So this is essentially a tune-up at our North Tahoe Middle and High School site. It's air balancing and also just making sure that the system is working efficiently and properly for air circulation on the site. And this is something that, also addresses health and safety of the campus as well. And we are funding it with our COVID funds, ESSER 3 funds specifically, because it is related to the air quality inside the building.
Questions? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve contract 21.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Thank you. And then our famous dry period financing application, Mr. Rivera.
Thank you. So this is something that we do bring to the board annually around this time of the year, and essentially throughout the course of the year, our revenue doesn't always come in a timely fashion. Most of our revenue is derived from our property taxes, as you know, and we don't actually receive our first receipt until December. So oftentimes in the October, November months, we do run into what's called a negative cash or a cash shortfall from what we have in our bank account, essentially, compared to what we've spent over those first few months of the school year. So Placer County Treasurer's Office does offer a dry period funding option for school districts within Placer County. Essentially, they will cover any cash shortfalls for the district if we do go into a negative cash status. This often changes from year to year. We do projections on what our expenditures are going to be on a monthly basis and what our potential cash receipts will be. So some of this can vary from month to month, but essentially we're showing right now in our current cash flow projections that we'll go into a negative cash of approximately $5 million in November. Could happen a little earlier, could happen a little bit later. But just to cover us, we are asking Placer County to give us an overall coverage of about $10 million, just because there could be some nuances to when we receive the cash or how we're spending the money. So this will cover us. The only cost to the district is essentially the cost of interest earnings that the county essentially would lose by covering us for this deficit. It's generally a fairly small amount. It's whatever is in the cash, the county cash pool investments. And just to give you an example, the last month interest earnings for the district was about a 0.19%. So the county pool investment is not doing really well. But either way, it would be a small cost to the district in comparison to having to go issue any form of debt that would cover us during those negative periods.
Questions?
I had the homework question, and when I saw, assuming your response, I was like, I just wasted Todd's time, because when you explained it, I'm like, I know that's what that is. So I'm sorry, but thank you, and I won't have the same question next year.
No problem. It's only once a year, too, that we address this, so ask away. It's easy to forget it.
I also think, Kim, or Chris, in terms of those homework questions, sometimes it is important to say them, and also, I appreciate you guys bringing them up at these meetings, because if you have the question, you know that our public does the same.
Yeah.
With that, I will make a motion to approve the dry period application at the amount that was posted.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Great.
Just like to look at all these pictures.
Okay. So next we have curriculum instruction, first read of adoption of AP European History and the Human Geography textbook.
Ms. Simpson is going to lead us through this new adoption. Valerie?
Okay, As you may know, we are actually in the middle of doing a history social science adoption at our high school level, and COVID has brought us the opportunity to extend that adoption period a little bit longer than we'd like, so you'll see some more high school texts coming through. However, we were able to land on our AP European and history texts, and we're excited to bring this forward, and the teachers that have looked at these, the human geography text as well, have spent time looking through all of the materials. You've had an opportunity to look through them as well. And an interesting part that it's going to be some new legislation coming down, and we're preparing for that, involving the Williams compliance with instructional materials, is that the new law that they anticipate that will be signed sometime this year or next calendar year will require that students have access to their instructional materials at all times. So that means moving forward, as we purchase instructional materials, we will be purchasing most regularly. There might be some cases where we do it a little bit differently, but the standard practice will be the class set and then digital licenses so that the students then can access it digitally. So luckily, we are set up for that and just did that all through last year. And of course, those class sets will be available, like we'll have extras for students who might, they might prefer to have the text, right? And we'll be able to send those home. So that's what you'll see as we're moving forward with the rest of our new materials. So we're excited to get this going. I know the high school teachers are chomping at the bit, and I can take any questions. We do have the materials available for public preview, and if anybody has any questions from the public, they can definitely contact me via email.
Okay, this is a first read, so this is information only, so it will come back to us for ultimate adoption, right?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? I see Kirsten on a specific page in there.
I can't wait to dive into this. I wanted to study this in school, but I realized that it wasn't going to actually put me in a place where I could earn any money, so I decided to do something else. But I can't wait to do this.
You never know.
Right, now that I already have the other one taken care of.
Great. Okay. All right, great. We'll look forward to reading it and coming back. Sorry, so next we actually are having a public hearing.
Yes.
The public hearing is on proposed revisions to the board policy and administrative regulation 6158, which is independent study.
Yes.
So are you going to do your presentation prior to me opening the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, terrific.
So Ms. Lupita, if you can get it up for me, the presentation. This is going to be a joint effort. I'm going to facilitate most of it, but I'm going to ask Ms. Simpson and Mr. Santos to chime in their certain slides because they are the subject matter experts in these areas. I have the little dealy bopper. Do I go? Yeah, sorry. If you can put it in there. All right. It's been a while since I've used this. So okay. I will look this way then, because if you could show it over there, it'd be awesome. Oh, perfect. It is delayed. Okay. So what we're going to be doing is discussing tonight the new Assembly Bill 130 regarding independent study. And I wanted to give you an overview as detailed and succinctly and as efficiently as possible. Is it the green button? Yeah. There we go. It just, okay. Oh, gotcha. Got it. Sorry. Oh, that's even better, Ed. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. So to make sure that our families and our board and community understand, we will offer daily in-person learning with normal school hours for all of our students TK through 12 for 21-22. And student attendance is required for that. So the purpose of tonight is to talk about the policy in AR for Regulation 6158 as a result of a bill that Governor Newsom signed into law July 9th. This is a pretty new law. So this program is going to be made available to all students. This is a key slide. It's available to all students whose health would be put at risk by in-person instruction, as determined by their parent or guardian. It's not about enrolling in an independent study program for a year-long traveling trip. This is for students who have health issues that would put them at risk for being in person. So that's a really clear piece we need to remind our board and our community. So basically, we have five different types of independent study that already exist in our district, and Ms. Simpson is going to talk quickly about each one and give a brief example.
Yes.
These are not going away. These are staying.
So you'll see the language up there is familiar. We have what we would call our sports contract. That's typically a seasonal contract for students who need to miss like a certain day of the week or a certain part of one day to train or go to competitions. And then we also have what's called a short-term independent study contract. And that is a contract that's set up for students who are absent for 3 to 10 consecutive school days. And that would be for things such as a learning study trip, a family's going to Washington, D.C., items like that, or cases like that. And then we have our course-based independent study contract. It's also known as Cold Stream Alternative, and that is where typically high school students, we have had middle school students participate in Cold Stream. Students can go full-time to Cold Stream, although we only had one student last year full-time. Typically, students go and they'll take maybe 1 or 2 courses. They would pick up a course there. If it's a course that is something that maybe a school can't offer due to not having staff, or maybe the schedule of the comprehensive high school doesn't fit in to their work schedule or their actual school schedule, because they might already be taking a full load and have athletics. And then we have our long-term independent study contract. Right now, this contract applies to any consecutive absences of 11 or more school days. You'll see a little bit of a change in that with the AB 130. It actually will change to 15, so we will have a little bit of a change with the short-term contract. And then lastly, we have our beloved North Tahoe High School Ski Academy. That we know is for students who are skiing or snowboarding and need to travel and train and so that they can chase their passion of the snow. So those are our independent studies, pre or current, and with AB 130, it will only be impacting our course-based independent study and our long-term independent study. So it does not impact any other of those programs. Like I said, there's a little bit of a day change on the short term, but that's going to be it for the impact of the other 3.
And when we mean impact, it means that it influences. For example, the long term is going to go from 11 to 15 days. So they're not going away. So that's one thing we want to note. Our current independent study programs are here to stay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of requirements with Assembly Bill 130. And if you have questions, please feel free to stop me, Ms. Zurich.
I do have a question, thank you. So, AB 130 is only affects 21-22.
Absolutely, yes.
So this is not something that will go on in perpetuity.
Yes and no. So in this coming school year, we are accepting students in the program for health conditions, and typically when we have an independent study program, a long-term one, even short-term, we have certain criteria that students have to meet in order to be part of the independent study. That criteria comes back in 22-23. But the changes to what it looks like will remain.
I don't know that I'm understanding that.
Yeah, so for example, long-term independent study, let's go back, right here. Long-term independent study right now is 11 or more consecutive school days.
Yes.
With AB 130, Ms. Simpson, correct me if I'm wrong, will extend to 15 days, correct? So does that mean those 15-day, that 3-week minimum is going to be here to stay?
It means that our short-term contracts will extend to 14 consecutive days. Independent study will start, long-term will start at 15. But what we have right now, prior to AB 130, is that if a family wants or a student wants to choose either short-term independent study or long-term, they have to meet certain criteria. They have to be committed to doing what's expected. They have to, if it's a student below grade level, if we can't provide support services for that student, then that independent study would not be approved. That criteria goes away for this year. So this year, we are expected, and Superintendent Geisels will speak to that, we're expected to provide those supports
Regardless.
for this year. Next year, it definitely is, it changes.
It reverts back.
Yes, it
And
does.
as the year evolves, we will come back and remind you, hey, this is what's
Yes.
happening. Because honestly, it is law. It could change again.
Yeah.
So as Val said, the course-based independent study and long-term independent study are impacted. And we now know why. These are the requirements we must meet. All districts must meet. You have to hold a public hearing, the presentation and then the public hearing. We have to revise our board policies, which, by the way, we have been given a waiver by CSBA to do away with the first read and then come back. We can approve the AR and board policies tonight because of the suddenness in trying to implement this across the state. We have to revise our independent study learning agreements. We have to provide opportunities for live interaction, synchronous instruction, based on the outlines of AB 130. And again, this is for 21-22 school year only, and it's offer the program as an educational option. So this is just something you need to understand. So the instructional requirements are almost kind of like what we did for distance learning in cohort C. As you can see on the screen, TK to third grade would be daily synchronous instruction. And we're going to define synchronous just to remind you of what it meant. 4th through 8th is weekly and daily live. Now remember, this is all virtual. Daily live does not mean in person. It's virtual. 9 through 12 is weekly synchronous instruction. And then the difference with distance learning, well, really not really the difference, is we have to mirror the school day. So if a child is going to North Tahoe High School and has all of these classes, and they choose independent study under AB 130 for health reasons, we have to mirror what their schedule would be like if they came in person. That is a big, big piece for us to understand.
Will that just it will be online type thing? Will they have a video in classroom and that's enough to make it work?
No, it is different. Like this last year for our middle and high school, we had the students logging into the Google Meet. That is not what will be happening moving forward. So it'll be separate. The student in some ways can still stay connected through extracurricular to their home school or in-person school, but they're completely part of a different program in this way. And it's definitely challenging, like Superintendent Geisel says, like there's so much that goes into a student's learning program in a school day. We're expected, and all of the districts in the state of California, including us, are really struggling. How do you mimic that? How do you mirror that in an online program? When you have a student who receives ELD, they may go to a small group counseling, they may go get speech. Those are all the things that we have to replicate through this independent study program.
If a student has health issues that forces them to not come to school in person when everyone's masked, are they then excluded from going to extracurricular activities where no one's masked?
No.
So I'm going to get to that. Ed Code mandates that we provide opportunities for athletics and for extracurricular activities. We thought just high school, it's K-12. So the slide will reflect high school, but it's really technically TK-12. So that's a caveat. How do we handle that? If they're home for health reasons and they're basically doing an independent study online program and they want to join in for athletics, we would have to probably sit down and figure out a health plan for them to be able to do that, meeting their needs. If they want to, for example, randomly selected play football, we would have to figure out how to provide them that opportunity and still keep them healthy or safe. So that's something that we would have to work through.
And that's something that you guys are going to work on, because at this point, if they can't come to school and that's a school activity, that's a school, I mean, our sports are considered school activities?
Yes.
Go ahead, Val.
And maybe
No,
this
I
isn't
was
the right
just gonna-
form.
Yeah, they
Matt?
cannot be excluded. When a student chooses the independent study program, they cannot be excluded from any type of extracurricular activities that happen at their school site, just because they chose independent.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for the
No,
Yeah,
incredulous
no, we're-
tone of my
yeah.
voice.
Well, and we want to be able to provide the best experience for all our students, regardless of where they're coming from as far as their health and safety. It's just that this law was so quickly passed and has so many requirements that in the short amount of time that all districts are contending with, it's kind of, we're just trying to figure things
Correct,
out.
and I think we appreciate all that. And again, I guess the speed of how this came down and how we have to react is important. I guess the only thing that I would say is if it's the health of the student is not safe in our classrooms, I just don't see how it's going to be safe anywhere else. And again, our kids are our priority.
The one thing I would say is we would need to meet on a case-by-case basis with the families and figure that out. So just for your reminding what live interaction is and what synchronous interaction is, there are the definitions. Live interaction, the key word is school connectedness, wellness checks, progress monitoring, what we've been doing for cohort C students all through the year. And then synchronous instruction is also what we've been doing for cohort C students during our school year. So delivered in person, however, it's virtual. It is via internet, telephonic communications, and I'm sure you love that comment, two-way communications. So this is not something new. So it's basically independent study with an online twist. These are the minutes that are required for each grade level. As you can see, the minutes increase as the child increases through grade levels. And then we did a little chart so you can understand which grades require live instruction and which interaction, and which require daily synchronous instruction if it's required, and weekly.
The requirement came through
Through the legislation.
Through AB 130.
AB
This is
130,
straight
just
out of AB
130.
130,
Okay, thank
yes.
you.
And you'll notice too, just for everybody and those that are watching, that in some cases, the minutes exceed our contractual with our certificated staff. I just want to call everyone's attention to the title of that column. Not only does it include the instruction, but it also includes the amount of time it would take a student to complete an assignment. So, for instance, in sixth grade, maybe they're going to get 280 minutes of instruction. 20 minutes might count towards, like, go read your AR book or something like that. So I just want to make that clear because that was one thing that popped up. So also with AB 130 is a re-engagement plan. And we will explain, Valerie, you will explain what this re-engagement plan is. Perfect. Okay, so the re-engagement plan, it's actually not new language. This is something that we did last year. And our schools and staff and bus drivers, everybody pulled together on this. It was amazing. We were looking at students that they were disengaged, right? They weren't coming to their Google Meets. We were calling them. We were visiting them at their neighborhoods. Those are all the strategies that would be part of a re-engagement plan. A student starts to qualify for a re-engagement plan when they're not either turning in their assignments, they're not showing up for their Google Meets. We would reach out and say, hey, where are you? We're going to come visit. It also has to do with in this new legislation, it's also satisfactory educational progress. So not only that they're not participating, but maybe they're not doing well. They're turning in assignments, but they're failing. And so at that point, we would try to intervene, right, with some strategies to support the student. If that was not working out, then we have, it kicks into what's called an evaluation. And that evaluation then would be, looking at the work of the student. Maybe there's an assessment, there's a conversation with the family that says, hey, you know what, this is not working out. Your child is failing. your child needs to come back into the in-person program. And so that's a really good part of this, is that it's not like last year where we couldn't bring them back into in-person. The other part too is that there's an independent study learning agreement that has to be completed and signed in advance of a child enrolling. And so in this learning agreement, that's where the teacher outlines that the student needs to turn in their assignments on this day, in this place, and just everything is spelled out. If that gets violated, then again, we're going to step in and say, hey, how can we help you? If it continues to be violated, then we do this evaluation and we work to bring the student back to in-person.
So Val, I have a quick question in terms of the, you said re-engagement for these kids that would bring them back. If I have a health issue and I can't come back, is that part of page 2?
Well, that's where we would maybe look at some alternatives, you know, if there's a health issue, and this is where it gets tricky. I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I was just kind of over here chatting with Jeff, but we do have a home hospital program that we use for some of our medically fragile students or ones that are out on significant surgeries. So is it that we switch to something like that? I don't know the answer to that yet. However, what I do know is that this requires the student to make satisfactory educational progress.
So I have read some of this and some of the CSBA stuff, and so this is that loop that there's a concern about, because so some people might decide that it's not healthy for their child to wear a mask.
Right.
So they do this program and the child's not doing well, so we say, you got to come back to school.
Right.
And they are forced to wear a mask.
Right.
Or they refuse to wear a mask, which would be the other, and then we can't let them in the school if they refuse to wear a mask. And then they're back to being unsatisfactory.
And then do we go to SARB? I mean, there's so many like what ifs with this, we don't know. The good thing, another good thing, is that we have school districts that already started school. So hopefully we'll be able to be behind those trailblazers in some of these situations.
And I think with COVID, we always knew that we could count on the unpredictability. This law has a lot of stipulations that are pretty concrete, but the results and consequences are not. So we will just move and understand and try to work with each and every child in their situation. We don't have the answers yet. So, Chris, Ms. Hennessy, you had anything you wanted to say?
I do have a question. Is this for the student only, or if there's a medically fragile or concern at home, a parent, a grandparent, and so the family's choosing to keep the student home?
Go ahead, Ms. Simpson.
It's the intent it's the student that has a health condition. Yeah. Good question.
So as Ms. Simpson noticed, these are some of the steps that we can include in our re-engagement plan. Notification, outreach, a student conference with our paraeducator.
And the one thing I wanted to just say to that real quick, which is a change from last year on the re-engagement plan, is that and this really holds us accountable, that if a student is not participating or they're absent, we are required to contact that parent within 1 day. So it's not like, okay, you've missed 3 days and now I'm going to call you, or you missed 2 weeks. Oh, no. We need to get a hold of them right away.
Well,
so that's good.
We do that now. When Hope doesn't show up to class,
yes,
I would get a call.
Yes,
right.
Yes, you get the robocall, right? And then maybe you're going to call and clear the absence, but we're going to need to be more vigilant on that and making sure that we're following up and not just like waiting for the parent to get back to us. So it'll just have to be a tighter follow-up.
Oh, never.
So AB 130 also has implications for independent study as far as our students with disabilities and 504s. So Mr. Santos is going to speak to that.
Yeah, thank you. So with AB 130 or any change in legislation with instruction and whatnot, we have to look at the needs of our students with disabilities, including 504 plans. So just a couple of points on that. If a parent applies for independent study and would like to go through this program, if their child is on an IEP, we're requesting and asking that there's an IEP team meeting to discuss their request. The reason being is the IEP was written for in-person instruction, and therefore, based on what Ms. Geisel said earlier regarding mirroring their schedule, if you will, we have to discuss as an IEP team if we're able to continue meeting that need on that front. And so if it is approved through the IEP team and we feel like we can accommodate and work through that and provide service, then that needs to be attached with that independent study contract as well. And then that re-engagement, we will definitely be monitoring any students that are on an IEP that go through this program to determine are their disability needs being met or not. Up to this point, we haven't met a lot of resistance on that front. We do feel like we as a district work really well with our parents to work around their needs and challenges. So. And then 504 plan, this is also more on the accommodations front. We have to determine if those accommodations can be met through an independent study program. And again, 504 plans are also built and developed around in-person instruction. So an accommodation you might need in a classroom, if you go in independent study, that accommodation might be a moot issue. You may not be a non-issue because you're at home. So same thing, we would just have the 504 team get together with the family to discuss their requests and see what we can do to support that.
So we're going to be candid and show you the challenges that we have discovered during the course of learning about this law. So the first thing is the short timeline. We will have to have a program in place, or an option, which I'll discuss in a moment, in place by August 31st, the first day of school. There's no additional funding to implement this program that we know of yet. Maybe they'll provide that, but at this time, there's not. The AB 130 independence requests, parents can request to enter or exit the program at any time during the school year. So you start August 31st, for example. My child starts August 31st, and they go 6 weeks. They find that it's not working for them. They come back. We have to place them, get them ready into a classroom within 5 days. Or the opposite. They've been starting school 6 weeks later. They want the independent study program. So then we have to place them in the independent study program within 5 days. And that is ongoing throughout the 21-22 school year.
Let that sink in for a minute.
Yeah. What was that?
Let that sink in for a minute.
Also, we must provide all students, TK-12, access to extracurricular activities and athletics. We are bound by education code to do that. The AB 130 does not change that. Our re-engagement strategies or component has to be revised and implemented constantly, so that is also a challenge for us, especially if we nuances for children. If we see that they're not making progress and they want to come, we need to come back and they don't, what do we do with that? So it's constant problem solving that we're ready for, but it will be a challenge. Ms. Simpson, you wanted to say something really fast?
No, I just wanted to just add on to that, the next bullet there around consistent educational experience. I mentioned already how great of an experience our teachers and educators provide for our students with the in-person, and how really like complex. I mean, it's not like you come to school and then you're just there like receiving. I mean, it is quite a learning experience. Our teachers are moving and grooving, they're differentiating, they're conferring, I'm worried. I am worried because of this 5-day in and out. If I put myself in the parents' shoes, and if my child was going in and out, how do you put together a stellar educational program for a child within 5 days, either moving in or out of the program? You have to meet with the parent, you need to get to know them, they need to meet their new teacher. Most likely it won't be a Tahoe Truckee Unified School District teacher. So it's just so complex. So I am concerned about that.
So, as Ms. Simpson said, depending on what option we provide, even if it's an in-house option, our students will be not fully affiliated or involved with their school. Of course, there's extracurricular activities and athletics, but they're not going to be there on the day-to-day basis. And it may not be a teacher from their home school. If they're used to going to Glenshire, it may not be a Glenshire teacher. The option may be, it may not even be a teacher in our district. With the options I'm about to discuss. So it's just the challenge is maintaining consistent experience for our students. Right now, we don't know about the funding costs. They're unknown until we finalize our student numbers of qualifying families and which option will follow. The waiver option is defined, but the process is still yet to be communicated, like fill this form out, do this, but the definition is there. So that's another challenge. And finally, securing our staff in-house to implement AB 130. At the elementary level, we would need teachers to provide daily synchronous instruction and live interaction. This is different from in-person learning. And we've had great experiences with our Cohort C teachers, and they were amazing, but do they want to continue to do this? So we have plans in place, which I'll talk in the next few slides about what we plan to do. Middle school and high school, you have to offer everything. So how do we get credentialed teachers to provide that single subject across the board? And then also maintaining this program from a district and a site level. It's going to add on to the responsibilities. Since we came back, all of us went, these lovely people went on vacation. We have done nothing but work on this. And this is, this is something we need. It's the tide that's coming, and we need to be prepared for, obviously. So it's going to be a challenge, and we need to figure out how we maintain this as well. We will do it. It's just going to be a challenge. So these are important dates for the process and next step. So just to remind and give perspective, it was signed into law July 9th, 2 days after our last board meeting in July 7th. We got the guidance by the 15th. Today, we're having our public hearing, presentation, and meeting. We will present parent notification letters to our families by Friday morning with the FAQ sheet attached about basically what we've covered in this presentation, so parents can be really informed. We will do it via Blackboard, and we will continue our research regarding options. What can we offer, which I'll talk about in just a moment, and even the waiver, getting more information. We will send a Blackboard reminder call to our families on Monday. We would like for parents to decide, based on the health of their students, by August 12th, we're asking for noon, because we really need the head count. We really need to know how many children, how many students, how many scholars we would need to serve. August 18th, we'll come back to you and provide another update. August 20th, and continuing via emails and phone calls, we want to meet with our TTA union leadership. They're our partners in this if we provide an in-house option, and they're also our partners in whatever option we choose. We need to keep sharing the latest information and discoveries with them, and determine together if this impacts working conditions. And if we do, we then need to move forward with discussions with our union. August 31st, we either implement the program or apply for a waiver. So these are some options we're researching. The first one is, could we contract with certain school districts or county office of ed? That's part of the law. So Placer County Office of Ed has an online program called iLearn. The only issue, it's for K-8 only, and there's only 25 spots available for the entire county. Okay. But they know, but they have a placeholder for TTUSD. I told them we were doing our thing, so they know we're coming. Another issue is entering an interdistrict transfer agreement with another school districts for K-8. Dry Creek K-8 school has an exceptional virtual academy that they've had in place for some time. We've reached out to them. They're opening to taking our K-8 students, but we have to figure out the cost, and the number. So we have that kind of in the works. There's also the option of contracting with an outside online learning vendor, as some districts have done all over. There is one called Edmentum. There's one called, I think, Stride, and there's many out there. But what's the cost? How does it meet with our district needs? And also, we're looking at the nuances of the CDE AB 130 law as to whether we can do that or not. So, and then of course the last option is to submit a waiver. And I will explain what that means in detail. But first, parent request process. So, but Ms. Simpson, if you want to briefly go through each one to talk about what parents need to do.
Yes, thank you. So if a parent is interested in this independent, AB 130 independent study for the 21-22 school year only, we will be sending out information to parents Friday morning, as Superintendent Geisel said. In that letter, there'll be a link to a Google form, and they'll need to complete that form. It comes to my department, and then from that, we will notify the schools so that they can reach out to those families. We're also going to have that link available on our TTUSD website, front and center. And once that, it's going to be a very quick turnaround because we're putting a 2-day turnaround. So we get the form, the school has 2 days to reply back to them. Now, in this case, we're getting it on August 12th, so there's a little bit of leeway. This 2 days is more set up for during the school year, right? Because you have 5 days to transition. So if parents notify us by August 12th, we have more time to really design a plan for their child. If they wait until August 31st, it's going to make it extra challenging. So I really want to encourage parents that if this is something you're interested in, August 12th, make that a form. And then the other part on here too is if you're curious and you really think like, well, I'm curious, but I need to sit down and talk with the school and maybe talk with last year's teacher, you can have a parent can request a conference in advance of the enrollment. So again, like if this is a request that is placed on August 31st, the first day of school, and the parent says, I'm interested and I want a conference, well, we have 5 days to have that conference and get that child enrolled. So you can see how quickly our schools need to move.
And another challenge is if they, for example, say by August 12th, they want to be enrolled and they request a parent-educator conference, we have to track down a teacher.
Yes.
We have to figure that process out. Our teachers aren't on duty yet, technically. So then we would pay our teachers. It could be, if they're a third grade teacher, it may not be that teacher who can't make it. Maybe she's out on vacation. It might be a grade level third grade teacher. So we can't even guarantee to our parents that it may be their teacher from last year.
So, in terms of getting the information to the new families, all this, they're gonna, if I'm enrolled, I will be on your new email list. It's like, so when we send out the stuff on the BlackBerry, or Blackboard, sorry, so all the new families who don't know anything about our program will already be getting information. So they're already going to be on our.
By law, we are required to inform every TTUSD family enrolled in our district, new and current. Yes.
Okay, so we'll get the new ones as yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's another challenge. I'm just over here talking with Mr. Hilton because our students that are not yet active, they're still finalizing enrollment or they're in the holding pattern. They're not in our Blackboard Connect. So we can add another challenge to that list. How do we reach out to those families and let them know? They may not know until August 31st. Honestly, I don't know how we can track that down.
What I think we'll have to do is post it on our website and hopefully
yes,
they will notice that. But we'll have to,
banner.
Again, with every component, brings us an opportunity. Remember, the difference between an ordeal and an adventure is attitude. This is an adventure.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris. You had your.
Well, okay, so this is a state law. Are we calling it a law? Is that what it is? Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am. It is.
Legislation?
It is a law.
And it's an unfortunate one that seems like to have been rushed out, and we have no power over that or control over that, so we're responding.
Yes.
Much like we've been over the last year and a half, though, I think.
All districts, yes.
Yeah, but we're fine-tuning our think ahead. It sounds like you all are planning and brainstorming. But, I was thinking about those families who might not have connection to the Blackboard or, what have you. I mean, if I'm a new family in this district and I know that my child should not be in a classroom, I will be contacting this building
Yes.
prior to school starting.
Yes.
So I'm just saying that just to give you all like a little, because we're not saving everyone, right? Like we're going to meet these mandates, of course, or requirements, of course. We're great at thinking out of the box. We're always a step forward. And at least in many cases with our district, I feel like we're very proactive. But just a little like breather that, you know, as a parent, it's my responsibility to contact the school and say, what do you have in place? Because my kid can't step foot in the school, you know, so just,
So now I'm going to be the negative one. So we may or may not do this. We may or may not have the resources to be able to do this. So I think that doesn't that need to be front and center on the communication too? That, because we're kind of setting up expectations with the letter that's going out on Friday.
Yes.
So as you guys are talking, I'm thinking, what if we can't?
Right.
And if we are able to figure out the waiver process, or we can ask Dry Creek to, you know, send people to Dry Creek. So shouldn't the communication include, this may or may not be a
That's a good
program of
point.
the Tahoe Truckee Unified School District? And very clear about
It's
that?
not set in stone. That's
Yes.
right. This may or may not happen.
We're working toward
We're
this,
working
but we
towards
may
it.
not be able to do this, which is really a weird message to give, but it's an accurate one, right?
Yes. So next steps for district staff is to receive input and questions from you this evening. Also to finalize by August 12th our numbers of students that qualify due to health reasons of the students. I want to keep saying that. In applying for and having services through AB 130. We are looking at grades 9 through 12, perhaps out of the two, K-8 and 9 through 12, we could look at options based on in-house. Our Cold Stream Alternative Independent Study Program might be able to help us with that. Also, we're looking at how we offer TK-8. I've requested that Ms. Zapatini post positions right now, TK-8, just in due diligence to see what we get. Because at the end of the day, it matters about the teachers, because the teachers have to plan the curriculum. They have to, everything you do in independent study, these teachers will have to do.
And that's a 1-year assignment. We would hire them expressly for a single year.
That is correct.
So we're working with the union to see if we can have the okay to post 5 days. Ms. Sabatini, if you want to speak to that really quickly.
Yes, during this time of year, when we get close to the start of school, we work collaboratively with TTEA Union and asking them if we can reduce the agreed upon 10 days posting in district prior then to posting out of district to a 5-day in district prior to posting out of district. And I'm just currently waiting for their response on that.
So we're trying to think of anything we can to accommodate this in the timeline that we have and really do due diligence on this. And also we're going to find out our numbers from our parents, and we're going to talk to Dry Creek Joint Elementary School District and see if they can accommodate our K-8 students and enter an inter-district transfer agreement. But we have to look at the funding. We have to look at how much it's going to cost us. And we will be back to the board with those numbers. Also, as I said, 18th of August, we'll be back. And then also try and reach out to TTA to provide timely updates. We do have a meeting on August 20th, but I have emailed one of their e-board members. Everyone's still obviously on vacation, to say, could we do some phone calls? Can just keep you in the loop about this. So our TK to 8 options, as I've just said, we're going to continue to research the feasibility of an in-house program. 912, which I mentioned we're looking into Cold Stream Alternative Independent Study. And then we're going to continue with also looking at vendors, getting a number and looking at Edmentum, looking at Stride, looking to see what's out there. And then also consider what do we have to do for a waiver and investigate that. And now the waiver process. This is what you must demonstrate prior to requesting a waiver. Number one, unreasonable fiscal financial burden due to low numbers of pupils participating or other extenuating circumstances. The second thing is we can't enter in a inter-district agreement with a district like Dry Creek or the COA. It doesn't say anything about online vendors, but those are the 2 requirements. So we will be back to let you know what we have discovered. We have a lot of work to do.
Is Washoe a possibility?
So Washoe is not, and Ms. Simpson can tell you why.
Well, it's a different state.
I know, but
We
we
don't,
have a lot of kids.
this
that go there.
legislation doesn't even carry over there. And
Even if we have kids coming from there.
So
well, they would, we would then, deny their inter-district, and they would go to Washoe, right, and go to the in-person.
That's another challenge.
Yeah.
Because we're so close to state lines, we've had this great partnership with Washoe County, but it doesn't apply to Washoe County students.
So Washoe County wouldn't be set up with independent studies, so of this type, so they wouldn't have it available for
Right.
us to use.
Correct.
Yeah.
And yes, because, yes, Kim, it has to be set up in the way that follows the law in California.
So I've come to the end of my presentation. And Ms. Simpson, if you can diligently take notes for me, if the board has any more discussion or questions that we should follow up on, we really, really appreciate your guidance and input at this time.
Well, pooey, that's what I think.
Write that down.
Okay.
Pooey.
I'm just going to comment. This is unbelievable. I mean, how fast you have to turn around, how big a surprise, how difficult it seems to me to be. I'm impressed with the options that you've already looked into already. And I'm concerned about how much time it's taking you and your staff, when we've been fighting one crisis after another for a year and a half or so. The waiver looks pretty clear on what you have to prove.
And I completely thank you for that, Galen, because it is, we thought we were coming towards some kind of sense of normalcy, and we want to honor what our students need, even our students, most especially our students who have health issues. At the same time, hindsight's 2020, it would have been nice to know that this was happening in April for us to really do a good job. That's what worries me, is how fast can we put something that's really meaningful together, So we will come back with a lot of ideas, and we'll just keep investigating. We have Mr. Santos, myself, Ms. Simpson, Ms. DeWald, Ms. Zapatini, and of course, Mr. Rivera with the money. We're all working on it, and Mr. Hilton with the connectivity. So it's taking up all of cabinet's time, and we have to keep TTA in the loop. It's imperative that they understand what we're going through, because it will impact them eventually.
I have a real issue with the disproportionate expenditure of funds that will occur based on this situation that has actually no scientific or documented need. And, we invest heavily in our special education children who go through a rigorous evaluation to be special education children. And that makes complete sense and has complete justification, and this does not. And I am not a medical professional, and while I am emotional about my children's health, I am not the expert. And I think some parents obviously think they are. But relying on me to make that decision is,
right.
I know y'all know that. Sorry, but that's my thought. But I will, as a board member, my issue is the disproportionate expenditure. And so I'm looking forward to the rest of the research, and that's kind of my bias that will come out as we talk about this further. And Galen, thank you. I think you're right in that, I want you guys to be spending your time getting ready for the new school year, because it's always busy getting ready for a normal school year.
Right.
And so to have this again, yeah.
Can I just also jump in and say, I think that, our district is also uniquely positioned. I think if we do need to do something like this, it seems like we would be in a better position than most districts because of the fact that we've already established so many really strong, rigorous programs for independent learning. It's not like we're starting from scratch. We have a lot of really great minds who've put together wonderful programs, but that being said, I still worry about the chaos it will cause in the lives of the teachers, because they're already doing so much, and here we would be adding on yet another layer of expectation coming down from the California Department of Education, which is so completely disconnected from what's happening in the real life, day to day, where the rubber hits the road with education, that we're so overregulated. I'm almost wondering, at what point do we get to say enough is enough? Thank goodness for the waiver option, because I mean, we are just literally being run around, and we're asked to respond within days and weeks of, policy implementation. It's just, this should be something that would take a whole year to develop. And you pilot it for a year, and you see what goes right and you see what goes wrong. You don't just bake it in 2 weeks and fly. It's just unbelievable. So my sympathy goes out to every single one of you who's constantly trying to, isn't there like a nursery rhyme or something where round and round. Yeah. It's like the house and the clock and everybody, no one knows what end is up. And how can we possibly do anything right if we're constantly responding and reacting? So please, to everyone and all you guys, it just feels like as board members, we can't even get our heads straight because it changes every time we have a board meeting at this point. Every time we're looking at new policies where you guys as staff have to respond, and then the teaching staff have to respond. And it's already, we're already going into this year kind of anticipatorily exhausted, like preparing for the exhaustion, So please, hearts out to everyone. We couldn't say enough. This stuff is crazy. But we support any voice that comes to us. I think I speak on behalf of this board when the teachers are starting to feel like it's too much and we're asking too much and we're overregulated. We need to hear from our staff because we need to advocate on behalf of your sanity, your mental wellness, and your ability to model healthy coping strategies to our children. Who is this guy that we need to write a letter to? Mr. Tony? Tony Thurman? He's going to be hearing from me.
What are other districts, what are they saying?
So I have to tell you that because there are some districts who are LCFF funded that are dropping in enrollment, they started virtual academies all last year. So those districts are faring a little bit better. For example, Dry Creek has had a year to establish a virtual academy. In the Bay Area, there are school districts that have virtual academies. So they're actually wanting the inter-district transfers from other districts because it will help them with their enrollment. So those districts, we had 486 students that were in cohort C for the year. And just as a friendly reminder, we met with those families, and out of the 486, we had a total of 21 students who wanted distance learning for the fall. We had one first grader district-wide. So we had small numbers, and they were health concerns. Now, I think what we should do is start with that list of students and go from there and really reach out to them. But I think other districts the beautiful thing is, yes, it's a short timeline, but we start August 31st. Dry Creek started yesterday. So we're going to watch and see what and learn from them.
And then legally, when we decide we don't want to do the waiver, we just don't want to do anything, how bad is that? Can we just...
We don't know what, and that's a Mr. Rivera question, we don't know what sanctions will be imposed, but we will have to do an option, and I will come to you with our suggestions based on our homework, and whether it's a waiver, whether it's an inter-district transfer agreement with another district, or whether it's an online service. We have to investigate every nuance and involve our union in doing so because there will be some working condition impacts on those. And then we can come to you and say, I think we need to do a waiver. And this is why. But we have to show due diligence that we've tried our best in trying to implement this.
Again, this is where you just went back to what's best for the kids and what's best for the beginning part of our school. Can't we just say we want to do a waiver now and have someone work on all the two things that we really need? But your time, as you said, the amount of time you're spending on this.
Well, we could do a waiver now, and we could kind of work on it if we knew what the paperwork was, but we should probably prove points 1 and 2.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Let's get on those.
Yeah, and we're working on that.
Financially and bang for your, anyway, again, as long as we put our kids first in terms of how are we setting them up for this year with all of the emotional trauma that they needed to get support from, and is this the best use of our time? And again, we can't fight whatever they put down in our throats, whatever, but I just think that, again, somewhere we need to look back at what is best for our kids. And stand up for what's going to work best here. And if we have, what did you say, 486 were in cohort C, and now you've got 24, then it may be a moot point. But again, I understand your 1 and 2, and I get that is a huge point, but honestly, I would spin it so that we are, we're working with what we got that supports our kids that are here.
Well, as long as we follow the requirements of the law and show due diligence that we tried, I think that will make our waiver much more appropriate for the state level to read it. The county goes first, they read it, and then if the county approves, they send it on to the state.
So Chris, did you have thoughts or input that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I don't know how the rest of you all feel, but I feel really uncomfortable with considering an outside source. That does
the input
not.
we need.
Yeah, that does
Ms.
not
Simpson, can
sit
you write
well
that down?
at all.
What do you mean? What kind of outside source?
Dry Creek.
Oh, see,
some
I
of the
don't
professional
feel I
outfits.
don't feel uncomfortable with that.
We'll come back to you with the pros and cons of that. Mr. Larson?
So, I have a question. Would it be legal or ethical if, let me preface this by, we've always taken care of our students. Whatever the problem was, we figured it out. Jeff mostly figuring it out. But we've always taken care of our students. Would it be ethical or legal to, when parents say, I want that we talk with them and say, okay, how could we satisfy your concern at our schools? And there are all kinds of possibilities, I think, that way, that wouldn't invoke a second parallel school.
I think what we would need to do is have those conferences, because there's going to be, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. You have a family that says, my child shouldn't come into school because of health reasons. Well, we can't legally ask documentation for that, but we can sit down and say, well, what is it that you're concerned about? What is it that you're looking for? And maybe we can find that option somewhere. So it's a lot of conversations and trying to meet the needs of the students. We were just talking about that, is how do we figure all the logistics out for that? So, yes, we're going to consider that as well. Lots of pieces to this puzzle.
Let's say all 24 of those cohort C families that are, if I understood correctly, at the end of the school year, they said that they thought that's how they would want to reenter.
They were interested in distance learning for this year.
And I'm completely thinking out loud, brainstorming. I'm not committing any union, any teacher, any staff. I'm needing to process. So if there are 24 families that say, okay, we're going forward, or 17 families out of those 24. Is cohort C an option, and would it meet some sort of requirement to satisfy this?
I know you're really wanting to
Chomping
answer
at the
that. Go
bits.
ahead.
Well, the issue is really that we would be we looked at this in June when we had those 20-some-odd families or students interested, and I think we ended up with, it would be a TK or first grade through 8th grade classroom, and then we still at high school, I think we had like 2 or 3 students.
So the problem
Yeah.
is, if you offer that, it was 21, and we had 1 first grader, 2 second graders. So if we had a teacher that Ms. Apatini would hire that would be a multiple subject, it would be the old schoolhouse mindset. They would have to touch every single grade level, every single core curriculum priority standards to teach. And that is a huge undertaking, even for someone who volunteers and is hired to do that. That's just unrealistic. That is something that would be a burden for us to due to low numbers. We've kind of already lived number 1, and we said we wouldn't have a cohort C. So that's the issue. Any other questions? This is really valuable for us. Okay.
What about if a student we turn on Google Classroom, and the student's at home, and they're just there?
We experienced that last year.
I know.
We did.
I know.
And we kicked right into gear with re-engagement plans, and I think teachers had to get extra creative on how to engage students and calling on students to participate, and here we come. here comes Mrs. Larson and Mrs. DeWald knocking on the door, contacting parents. And that's what we would do in this same situation. It also starts could eventually kick into like an attendance issue and then could end up in Jeff's world under SARB. So, yeah.
Right, but, I mean, if I wanted Hope to not show up at Turkey High, I mean, she's graduated, she's not going to show up, but if she, then, okay, Hope, you just get on the computer and Mr. Bennett's teaching you, and then Ms. Cook's teaching you, and you have to be on the computer.
Satisfactory educational progress. So if she's not making satisfactory educational progress, then an evaluation is held, and then we go down that road.
But my point is that an alternative because it's free? The teacher's already teaching.
And the responsibility lies on the family.
On the family.
So I think
misunderstood.
you need to bring
Yes.
back.
Oh, I
concern.
misunderstood.
No, let Ms. Apatini, let's talk about that, what we experienced this year.
So if we're talking about high school, we had teachers who really struggled with kids online and kids in classroom, but it does cause a whole lot of extra work and a whole nother thing for teachers at the high school. And so we would have to go into an MOU, we'd have to pay people to do that. It's like another whole layer of doing that. And at first, it was an agreement that we had with TTA because they asked for that. But in hindsight, they weren't really happy with what ended up happening at the high school. It wasn't kind of what they had thought. So to get teachers to do, I don't think that we would go down there because of that. At elementary, it was even harder. They really struggled with that. So I think there are nuances with that really would be, I don't know whether they would be opportunities that even TTEA would be open to having a conversation about.
And understandably so. It was a tough year for our elementary and our high school students to provide this. And that's what worries me, is I think we'll have to fly it and see if we have people apply rather than impose it upon our teachers, because this is a lot of work. And, they went through a lot the last 18 months.
Right.
And that's the hard thing.
Right. Well, if it's okay with everyone, are we good? I will then open the public hearing on this item. And I will note there's no public here, so I will close the public hearing. So thank you. So we've had, now, do you want us to adopt these now, or do we want to wait till the 18th? The AR?
Here's the situation. We've been strongly encouraged by our County Office of Education and NCSBA to adopt these, because whether we do one or not, the board policy and the AR are in place. That doesn't preclude us from applying for a waiver. It just means that we acknowledge and recognize these board policies. So it's really up to the board's discretion. I will be coming back and presenting them to you again in August, 18th.
Yeah, what if we wait 2 weeks?
Like, is there a con to that?
I don't see it to be a con because we're going to be moving forward anyway. We've already made revisions to our draft learning agreements that reflect these changes, so we're ready.
And I think we have the luxury, believe it or not, of a few days yet. We don't start till the 31st, so the 18th would be satisfactory if you're...
I mean, I would like to have as much information as possible before we did that. Any other? Okay.
Yeah, and also, I think, definitely going through the BP, the board policy, and the AR, and see that it does make some statements in there, like for this school year, it'll say for 21-22, and then there's another section that says for 22-23, so that you can see that it addresses the future, but also puts some stipulation for this year.
We can bring it back on August 18th.
Thank you. Okay.
I would prefer not to approve it if we don't have to.
All right. Thank you. So lastly, comments of board members. Ms. Levac? Nothing? Ms. Driller?
No comment.
Ms. Hennessy?
Wait, I will have a comment, though. I'm not hanging out. Both you two seem to be injured, so I'd like you on a different table. I don't want you on our table anymore.
See, I was going to say how much I like being together. Yes, we're injured. I don't have any comments either, although I'm looking forward to the school year starting. Not for summer to be over, but I'm excited. Okay, thank you. We will adjourn to our to regularly scheduled meeting on the 18th. Oh, the 17th, special meeting. Yep, thank you.
I'm looking forward to that. Do you want my lunch request or will you?